Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of Enjoy Beekeeping. Today I want to talk about the small hive beetle. If you have small hive beetles where you live, they can actually take away all the fun out of beekeeping and you won't enjoy it at all. So today I'm going to give you my unbiased review of what I use to help control small hive beetle in my apiary. Okay, I said this was an unbiased review because the product I'm reviewing is the Guardian Hive Beetle Entrance Baffle. It's not really a trap and it doesn't kill the beetles, it just prevents them from gaining access to the inside of your hive. So today I want to talk about the two different options that they offer. Before I get into how that product works, the reason why I say it's an unbiased review is because I am not affiliated in any way, shape, or form with Guardian. So I don't get any kickbacks, promotions, no discounts, nothing. So I'm just going to tell you what I like about the product and what I dislike about the product. I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but I want to give you both the pros and cons so that you can make an informed decision on how you want to proceed in managing small hive beetle. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get into it a little bit. First off, what is the small hive beetle? Well, the small hive beetle is a little black beetle, a little bit smaller than a ladybug. So if you've seen ladybugs, you know about how big they are. If you've never seen small hive beetles in your apiary or in any of your beehives before, consider yourself blessed, because I'm jealous already if you're one of those people. We have them here in northeast Georgia. We have them all throughout the southeast. And they can actually destroy a hive. And here's what they do. When a small hive beetle looks at your beehive like all-you-can-eat buffet, and they will go in and eat both the larva, the honey, and the pollen, and then on top of it, to add insult to injury, they will use your beehive as their personal bathroom. So they will actually destroy your hive, and the most destructive part of the whole hive beetle experience is when they lay eggs and their larvae hatch. They are the most destructive inside the beehive. The beetles themselves are not all that destructive, but the larvae are what really cause the damage. And what they will do is once they take over, once they get a foothold inside the beehive, they will slime the beehive. So if you've never experienced sliming by small hive beetle, it's basically as the larvae start to eat through the bee larvae and the pollen and honey stores that you have, they will just eat and munch their way through and then just keep going to the bathroom wherever they may be, and it gets awful. It just gets horrendous smelling and it's slime everywhere. So here's the thing. Even a strong hive can be attacked by small hive beetles. And I'm going to give you some tips today on how you can actually manage this problem without using any toxic chemicals. But I want to talk about using the small hive beetle entrance baffle that the company called Guardian makes. They make two different styles of entrances. And the bees can get in, the beetles can get in too, but it's really hard for them to get in. So that's where these come in handy. It makes it almost impossible for the hive beetles to get in. So first of all, I told you I was going to talk about the pros and cons. So let's start with this one. This is the round hole entrance model. And if you use round entrance holes on your beehives, this is one that you can use that will help control hive beetles. Okay, so the pros are it will definitely do its job in helping control small hive beetles from getting inside. Small hive beetles have a hard time making a hard 90-degree turn. And so what this does is as the beetle lands on your beehive, because they can fly, okay, so they fly, they land on your beehive, and then they look for a way in because they can smell all that good food inside they want to get at it so bad, and they try to get inside and they walk around and around, and if they can get into the inner lip, or I should say if they can get into the outer lip, well again they go round and round and round and they get frustrated trying to get in, and they can't make that hard 90-degree angle turn to actually get into the entrance. Okay, so that's how these work. Now, One of those beetles is going to get in eventually, but the good news is this. Bees will capture and carry out that small hive beetle. So the bees will capture them, grab hold of them, and they will fly out of the hive with the small hive beetle and then just drop it somewhere on the grass. Now that small hive beetle will fly back to your beehive and make another attempt at getting in. But the good news is this is really going to slow them down a lot. So you might ask, well, why don't the bees kill the small hive beetles? Well, they really can't. The reason why they can't is because they have a hard shell. So all the bees can do is dedicate a certain number of worker bees the task of grabbing hold of those hive beetles and flying out of the hive and dropping them somewhere on the grass. Okay? They don't go too far with them, they just want them out. So the minute the bee flies out, they just drop it somewhere. And again, this cycle can just go on all summer long. So that's the pro of both designs. These are baffles because all it does is it makes it very, very hard for the small hive beetle to get into your beehive. Now, here's the thing. There are some things you want to keep in mind when it comes to using these. These will do you no good whatsoever unless you have every single crack and crevice sealed and you've got a good cover on that beehive and it's got to be tight. You don't want those beetles to get in anywhere else, and they can get through a small hairline crack, no problem. You won't even see them get in. So when I build my beehives, I make sure that there's only one way in or out, and that is the entrance that the bees control. So I look over my hive. When I build all my hives, if I need to, I'll run a bead of silicone caulk on the bottom, right at the joints, to make sure that there's not even the tiniest of cracks anywhere on the bottom of the beehive. Then I look up and down the sides, and then when I put my frames in, I make sure they're packed in nice and snug and that my cover goes on secure. Now you can use these regardless of what kind of beehive you use. I use Langstroth beehives. I use a lot of horizontal beehives like the Layens style, and I'm going to get into that a little bit because I don't know if there's a lot of information on how to use this product with the Layens style beehives. I know the round entrance works real well with them. Now here's the con. I want to talk about the con on this round entrance. This is my least favorite way to prevent hive beetles from getting in, and that's using the round entrance. Here's why. The bees need to fly directly into that hole in order to get into the hive. Now sometimes they can land on top and then they can kind of crawl underneath and get in. But every time I use the round entrance hive beetle baffle on any of my hives, I find I get a traffic jam of bees starting to just beard up all over the front of it, waiting to get in, and it's hard for them to fly in. And it takes them a while to figure out how to get in there. They have to kind of, you know, when you're coming in for a landing, you know, bees don't necessarily need a landing board, but in the case of these, that might not be a bad idea. So what I would suggest, if you're going to use the round entrance, that you would put a little bit of a landing board, maybe about an inch underneath one of these. Don't let the landing board touch it, but about an inch underneath. Now I've just stopped using this particular one altogether, and this is why the Guardian people might not want me to be an affiliate, because I don't really care for these anymore because of the traffic jams and the fact that my bees have to kind of go through a learning curve in order to figure out how to get in this particular baffle. Okay, so you got the pros and cons on the round entrance hole. Now let's talk about the slotted entrance baffle. Now this is actually designed for the Langstroth hive. It was built with that hive in mind because probably the majority of beekeepers in the United States are using Langstroth equipment. That's the least of my equipment in my bee yard. I'm down to just 2 or 3, and the rest are all horizontal. Now, the way these work on a Langstroth hive is they're meant to sit right on the landing board, and it creates a baffle all the way around, all 4 sides. And then if the beetles happen to land on the little perforated, it's not really perforated, but it's got holes right in the front, The instinct of the beetle is to fly in and go straight down. That's their instinct. They want to fly in and then get out of sight as fast as they can, and then they just crawl around and crawl up the sides and crawl up the corners, and they hide everywhere. And then when the bees aren't looking, they come out and do their damage. So I want to talk about how you can use this particular hive beetle baffle using a horizontal hive, because that's the majority of all the hives I use. Now, in order for these to work, is they're meant to sit on a landing board up against the beehive itself. So most of you Langstroth people are probably using an entrance reducer of some sort and the landing board, and this sits on the landing board, and you can put 2 screws in, one on each side, and screw it right into your entrance reducer, okay? And it works great. And if you have a horizontal hive, like I use the Layens and Lazutin styles, you have to have a landing board, because you can't mount them just flush against your beehive like this. They're not going to do the job you want them to unless they have a flat surface underneath, okay? So the way I've dealt with that is I've just created this small landing board, and I just cut these out of 2x4s, and it only needs to be about the same size as the beetle baffle itself. And it just sits on here, and it creates just enough space underneath so that you've got the baffle perimeter on all 4 sides. So this is how I do it. I just screw this in. I pilot hole 2 holes in here. So make yourself a small landing board that you can screw directly into the face of your Layens or horizontal beehives. And all I do is I drill 2 pilot holes, 1 on each end, and I put 2 2-inch screws into it like this, and then I mount my entrance baffle right on top with 2 screws again. And this works great. And I do recommend using this style. Now, it's so much easier, I have to admit, to just drill a round hole in your beehives and use the round entrance beetle baffle. But I think you're going to be a lot happier if you take the time moving forward to build your hives with the slotted entrance. It's a 4-inch slot, 3/8 wide. Now, there's a couple reasons why I really like this design. Also, it does its job of keeping out the hive beetles pretty darn good. So if you've got a decent colony, doesn't have to be a real strong colony, but if it's a decent colony, it will keep the bees from having to deal with the constant removal of those hive beetles. Eventually the hive beetle will win because they're persistent and they'll just keep going back. And if they start to lay eggs and multiply, well, then it gets out of control and the bees can no longer keep up with all that disaster happening in their beehives. The other really big advantage that this particular design offers over the round entrance one is the fact that it's got a very small, not quite 3/8 of an inch opening for the bees to come in and out of. So your queens can get in and out if they have to fly and mate. The drones can get in and out, which is fine. So you won't have drones stuck inside your beehives with these. But what I really like about this particular design, it does something it was never intended to do, but it just so happens to do it. It keeps out the murder hornets. We get the very large hornets that are about the size of your thumb. And I've had 2 colonies wiped out with them. Not this year, but about 2 years ago. I had 2 colonies that were just totally wiped out. And it only took 1 or 2 hornets to do it. So this design will keep those out. There's one more plus when it comes to using this particular design, and that is it's got a divider right down the middle. So each opening is about 2 3/8 inches long. So come time for the dearth and things start to be real competitive with the bees, I can just close off half of this entrance, so I can go from about not quite 5 inches down to about 2 3/8, 2 1/4, just by putting an unscented Swiffer wipe just tucked in right on that side, just like that. Now, if you need to go even further, you can reduce the other side, the same way, just kind of ball up a piece of Swiffer wipe and you can close that entrance down about halfway also. But I find this is adequate for when the dearth sets in. You really can't use toxic chemicals to deal with small hive beetles in your beehive. All you can really do is prevent them from getting in or trap them. Let's just take a quick peek under the hood of one of those Layens beehives and show you how I use the Swiffer wipes as I tuck the bars close and tight together, nice and compact, and how I keep the small hive beetle from finding a way in from the top, because that's where a lot of them can come in if you don't seal it off the right way. So this is a standard 14 frame Layens hive, and everything is sealed off. There's no way for beetles to get in any other way except to attempt using the baffle. This was a swarm that landed in one of my swarm traps that was sitting right up on top of a barrel where this is now located. I just took the barrel out and put the hive in its place, and bees are doing just fine. So there's my Guardian entrance baffle at the front, and the bees are using it just as it's intended. It's working out great. The bees have no trouble getting in and out, which is a real good plus. They just come and go as they need to. And up here, you can see right here. So the bees that are working this colony now are only using a little more than half of the frames, and right here is where my follower board is. So there's frames here, and the reason why I have these frames, you don't want to leave this open. Okay, don't leave this side open. So all the bee activity is here, that's fine. Here's my follower board. Don't leave this open because the beetles will get in here. So I fill it with frames, and if there's a little space on the end like here, I make sure everything's real tight together, and I put in the Swiffer wipe right here. So I put it right along the edge, and then at the top where the follower board, there's a little tiny gap. I'm telling you, you got to get ridiculously anal about it, and you have to look for cracks because you got to think like a hive beetle. So you want to make sure that there's a little piece of Swiffer wipe there. Up on top here, just put that on there, and then again right here you can see right where the follower board doesn't quite touch, I just tuck in a little piece here, and that'll work great. Now this is a nice sealed up hive. That should keep out the hive beetles no problem. So again, these are the vulnerable places right here and along the edge. So you make sure you put those unscented Swiffer wipes in there. The beetles will get tangled up in them, and the bees will be able to enjoy their lives without anyone eating their brood and going to the bathroom all over their hive. Well, let's just put the cover back on. Well, I hope this unbiased review of the Guardian Hive Beetle Entrance Baffle helps you on your journey to keep on enjoying beekeeping without the nasty hive beetles making a mess inside your beehive. So until next time, friends, keep on enjoying beekeeping, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe, and share with your friends, and I will see you at the next video.